come to church on a Sunday morning. Investments have always been tricky, whether it's today or it was in Jesus' day, but there are some extraordinary aspects of this particular investment story from the Gospel of Matthew that I would like to have you consider that guide us for our living as faithful disciples. Listen with me for the Word of God found here in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 14 through 30. This is the Common English Bible. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who was leaving on a trip. He called his servants and handed his possessions over to them. To one he gave 5 valuable coins, and to another he gave 2, and to another he gave 1. He gave to each servant according to that servant's ability. Then he left on his journey. After the man left, the servant who had 5 valuable coins took them and went to work doing business with them. He gained 5 more. In the same way, the one who had 2 valuable coins gained 2 more. But the servant who had received the 1 valuable coin dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The one who had received the 5 valuable coins came forward with 5 additional coins. He said, "Master, you gave me 5 valuable coins. Look, I've gained 5 more." His master replied, "Excellent. You are a good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I'll put you in charge of much. Come, celebrate with me." The second servant also came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 valuable coins. Look, I've gained 2 more." His master replied, "Well done. You're a good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I'll put you in charge of much. Come celebrate with me." Now the one who had received 1 valuable coin came and said, "Master, I knew that you are a hard man. You harvest grain where you haven't sown. You gather crops where you haven't spread seed. So I was afraid, and I hid your valuable coin in the ground. Here, you have what's yours." His master replied, "You evil and lazy servant. You knew that I harvest grain where I haven't sown and that I gather crops where I haven't spread seed. In that case, you should have turned my money over to the bankers so that when I returned, you could give me what belonged to me with interest. Therefore, take from him the valuable coin and give it to the one who has 10 coins. Those who have much will receive more, and they will have more than they need. But as for those who don't have much, even the little bit they have will be taken away from them. Now take the worthless servant, throw him outside into the darkness. People, they'll be weeping and grinding their teeth." Thanks be to God for this reading of the Gospel of Christ. First, there's the matter of the coins that the servants are given. Just a little background on what those coins and their value were. In the Greek, it was a talanta. A talanta is a 15 years' wages for a day laborer. 15 years' wages in 1 coin that the servants were given. So let's assume today that a day laborer can make $20,000 a year. I don't know if that's possible, but let's use the number 20,000. That's how much that coin would have been worth. That means that the coin is valued today at around $300,000. That's how much the coin is worth. If a day laborer makes $20,000 in a year, 15 years' wages, that's $300,000. That coin's worth $300,000. 5 coins would be $1.5 million. 2 coins is $600,000. That's a good chunk of change, friends. Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. $1.5 million given to that first servant. That's what the servants were given to invest. And the first shocker is in this story that they were given this money and they didn't earn it necessarily. The master in the story gives it to them. They are given this gracious gift. It was a gift from their master and the Lord of their house. The master entrusts his wealth to his servants. Not only is he trusting them with his wealth, he goes off on a long period of a journey, and he gives them time to figure out what they're going to do with this gift they've been given. Our culture places much value on things happening immediately, even instantaneously. We just don't like to wait. We like things to happen quickly. Yet here, another gift is the gift of time that these servants are given. A long time, the story says, allowing the servants to live faithfully with its abundance or to use it as they might wish. It crossed my mind this week as I was reflecting on this story that we could give such a gift to each of you this morning. We could give you just a boatload of money and have you decide how you want to use it in the next period of time. We set it up for, use it in the next year. See what you can do with this money. But then the finance committee came to mind as well, and I thought, we probably can't go there. I can't make that happen right yet today. Maybe you've heard about churches who have done just this, though. Maybe you have a friend that has attended a church where they gave each member $100. My mother's church did this in Ohio a few years back. They gave those who were willing to receive the $100, and they asked them to do with it as you wish, and perhaps bring back to the church what you were able to do with that $100 gift given to you. They just asked them to invest it in a way that would honor God in some way. So you can imagine that there could be responses like the responses of our servants in our story this morning, responses that could perhaps multiply it or not. The two that handle it with the idea of being able to make more of what they were given, they double it. And then there's that one servant who does the old stuff it in the mattress technique and thinks that's probably the best way to go with the gift that he's given. First two hear the master exclaim, "Enter into the celebration of your master. Celebrate with me," when they return with the doubling of the gift. The last one is called wicked and worthless in some way. We want to be like the first two. We're not so much interested in behaving like perhaps the last one. When it comes to receiving the joy, the celebration of the Master, we all want to figure out how to get some of that, to be a part of the celebration, to be a part of the joy of living life to the fullest. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we're all about that, right? So why wouldn't we want to side ourselves with those first two servants? A few years back, I read a book entitled Deep Economy. It's written by Bill McKibben. It's a pretty intelligent writing, so I wasn't surprised when I found out he actually is a United Methodist. Go figure. So this intelligent guy wrote this book about deep economy. McKibben points out that we Americans are the richest of generations for many generations ago. We are richer than any other generation has been in the United States, but we're not happier, he also notes. The statistics say we have more resources financially and just resources in general, but we are not happier as citizens of the United States. So what is it that is lacking? We have more music, we have more education, we have more communication, more entertainment, but it hasn't added up to more celebration, happiness, and joy. What gives in this economy of ours? McKibben reveals that there's a certain point where money does actually make a difference and makes one happier. There is an actual point at which money does make a difference. So, money can't buy you love is actually only true to a point. You can actually buy happiness. You can have enough resources financially that will make you happy. But there's a point where that ends, where you can keep adding money and it doesn't make you happier to have more than that particular amount of money. So when you look at the whole of the world, all of the world, and look at what that number would be. McKibben did some of the running of the numbers, and if you compare yourself to the rest of the world, happiness is there until about $10,000 for each individual. Each individual receiving $10,000 is about where happiness ends as far as you can buy it. It helps to have $10,000 per individual in the world. If you can add that to someone who's at a poverty level, they will find happiness by having moved towards that $10,000 mark. But once that $10,000 is reached, it seems as though you don't necessarily buy more happiness because you have more than the $10,000. Research shows this consistently. Buys happiness right up to that point. So on this list of mistakes that we make as a species, just as humanity in and of itself, this is pretty high on the mark, that once our needs are met, money doesn't buy us more happiness. A single-minded focus on increasing wealth has driven us to the brink of failure environmentally and perhaps even economically. And all this without making us happier, which is a striking kind of thing to realize. How did we screw up on the use of our gifts, on our finances? How have we screwed up in understanding the realities? Note one thing about the two investing servants. These two investing servants in our Gospel of Matthew, it sounds to me like these two brought to the master the original investment as well as more. They bring more than just what they were originally given. In fact, they doubled their money entrusted to them. Hardly a possibility without running risk. They had to run some risk on the original investment that was given to them. They are willing to risk for their master. They're willing to take the risk. Not for themselves, mind you. They're not risking it because they're going to end up using this money for themselves. They give it all back, plus the more that they created, they give it all back to the master. So they're doing this in order to help the master out. That's an intriguing thing to think about. Perhaps this is the mark of discipleship, a willingness to risk for God's sake and not just our own. The third servant is motivated in an opposite direction. Motivated by fear. Motivated by being afraid of the master in the story. This third servant is immobilized by fear. Fear of failure, fear perhaps of punishment, fear of loss. And so he buries the money and decides once the master comes back, he can have his money and I won't have anything to do with having lost any of that money. The fear, he wasn't willing to risk in some way. I love the Harry Potter series. I've read every one of the books. I've seen all the movies, and I enjoy kind of reflecting on what those movies and the storyline have to share with us about the realities and the truths of our lives. There's a poignant moment in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, if you're not familiar with this particular series of readings and movies. But Harry and Professor Dumbledore, his ultimate mentor in the stories, were talking about the fact that Harry almost was placed in the wrong house. He was almost placed in Slytherin. You can even just saying the word makes you realize it's an evil place. Slytherin. You don't want to be in that place. There would be a lot of similarities that Harry realizes between himself and one Tom Riddle, who would become Lord Voldemort. You can't say that word, but at any rate, if you don't want to be like this guy and everything seems to be showing up like you're just exactly like him, that became a very tense point for Harry. Take a moment and take a listen to this part of the movie in which Harry and Dumbledore are talking.
Intentionally, but yes.
So the Sorting Hat was right. I should be in Slytherin.
It's true, Harry. You possess many of the qualities that Voldemort himself prizes. Determination, resourcefulness, and if I may say so, a certain disregard for the rules. Why then did the Sorting Hat place you in Gryffindor?
Because I asked it to.
Exactly, Harry, exactly. Which makes you different from Voldemort. It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
It's not our abilities that mark who we are. It is our choices, Dumbledore tells Harry. If we allow ourselves to be taken over by fear, we will make choices that will live up to those fears. We won't necessarily live a fully alive life. We will withhold ourselves from actions that might fail us in the end. So we ignore even the evidence of what may be the right choice for our life. And there lies the blame or the screw-up that matters in our economy, a focus on self. What McKibben says in his book, Deep Economy, is a hyper-individualism is what motivates too many in our economy. Let me tell you, I've had a significant understanding of how hyper-individualism can be overcome this week. Let me tell you about a significant donation that we received for the Make a Difference Challenge this week. She stopped in the church this week. She was in the kitchen and she said she wanted to make a donation to the church. I told her about the Make a Difference Challenge and how if you give to this particular challenge, it will be matched. Every dollar you give, every penny you give will be doubled, and it'll make even more significant impact. If you want to give it to that would be great. So Tess Richards says to me, I've got this money, I'd like to give it to the church, and sure, go ahead. We'll put it in the Make a Difference Challenge. So we counted it up together. It was $2.58. That means it was worth $5.16. Let me tell you, that's a significant choice to be made. A choice that wants to impact the good of our community, our families, our world through the work of our church. Giving to that in that way is a significant gift to give. Consider this phrase that people seem to think is in the Bible. God helps those who help themselves. It's a great little phrase. We tend to use it ourselves. People, when they're asked, where do you think this quote is found? 75% of Americans will say it's found in the Bible. It is not. It is found in Ben Franklin's writing. Ben Franklin said this quote. And in fact, in the Bible, when you start looking consistently at what Jesus said about such matters, it didn't even come close to what Ben Franklin said. Every time Jesus was asked, what's the most important thing? He came back with 2 greatest commandments, right? We studied these not long ago. The Jesus Creed, you are to love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. You are to love your neighbor as yourself. That is consistently the thing that we are to be about, to operate out of God's abiding love. And that is the thing that perhaps can cure us to the ailment of hyper-individualism, looking out for only oneself. Life is to be focused in a different area. Or as the scripture tells us today, it's about celebrating with the joy of the master. Not on stockpiling more for ourselves, not more that we can find, perhaps even that we aren't necessarily even in need of. When it comes to money matters, we would do well to remember that more is not always better. The truth is, enough is best. Enough is best for the pursuit of happiness. Enough is best for the healthy society. Enough is best for our global environment. Enough is best in our money matters as well. Enough will get us far. So Wesley put it this way: earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. Or as our Lutheran friends that I know well put it this way: when you're giving and understanding the use of your resources, you should 10-10-80. That is, you can give 10% to God, 10% in savings, and 80% live on that. That's their understanding of how to use our financial resources. The key, however you might look at these things, is to examine our lives for ways that can build up the gifts that God has given us. God wants us to do great things through ourselves, through our families, through our community, and our church. Are we in a position in which God can use us to the fullest? Are we and will we use our gifts wisely? Some of us need to slow down in order to do more. Others of us need to change our priorities to do more on behalf of God's kingdom. Your and my assurance of faith comes in continually seeking the things of God and finding ways to celebrate the love of God in our lives and in our world. So be it, and may it be so. We continue our worship as we join in the hymn, Take My Life.